Hi, I'm Jill with West Regional Branch of the Mobile Public Library, and today I have a book recommendation for you. I want to recommend Hands of the Emperor by Victoria Goddard. This is a fantasy novel, and I absolutely love it. It is part of a series, and I discovered this 2-3 months ago, and in the meantime, I have read the entire series and even reread a couple of my favorites. So, a 10 out of 10 would recommend you pick up the series if you like fantasy novels at all. Unfortunately, we do not have print copies in the library, but Hands of the Emperor, as well as almost all of the rest of the series, is available on Hoopla for checkout. So, if you do ebooks at all, go to Hoopla and check these out and, see if you like them as much as I do. Okay, so what is the book about? Hands of the Emperor is one of these enormous fantasy novels. It's over 1,000 pages, but it's not what you would typically think of when you think of a fantasy novel of that size. It's not like a J.R.R. Tolkien or a Brandon Sanderson. It's less of a plot adventure-driven book and more about character relations and character development. That kind of like what's a more personal type story. The main character, Cleophar, is the Hands of the Emperor, and which is basically makes him the second most powerful person in government. He runs the government for the emperor for the most part. Like, he carries out all of the day-to-day normal things, where the emperor takes care of the magical things, and the two of them have worked together in partnership for decades. And so the whole big setup of this book is that sometime in the past they had this major magical cataclysm where typhoons and volcanoes and cities sank into the sea, and magic stopped working, and time was broken, so it ran in different links and different places. And this book is decades or centuries later, when Cleophar and the emperor have worked hand in hand to put things back together, so that even in their just little corner of the universe that this is set in, they have actually managed to put things back together better than they were before magic broke them. And so now they're looking at, like, what's the next chapter of their lives? How do they set up the government so that they can hand it off to the next generation and things don't all fall apart again? And also, what do they do with the rest of their lives? And what about the relationship between the two of them? Because they have spent, at least decades just basically living in each other's pockets, working on this grand work together. And now that they're not going to be the emperor and his hands, how do they relate to each other? What's their relationship going to look like? And then you also have Cleophar, who has, a lot of family. He's actually from a, culture very different than the capital where he's been working all these years. He comes out from a separate culture out in the boonies. So there's lots of elements of, how do I reconcile the way we do things at home versus this culture I've had to adapt to all this time? And then if I go home, how do I reconcile myself with my family who doesn't really understand my life or what I've been doing all these years? And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, which I know I can, where, your family doesn't really understand your job, even though, like what you do all day, and sometimes can say some things that are somewhat insensitive about it. And so that's a factor. It's like, so there's a lot of that interpersonal and personal kind of character progress about, what do I do with my life? What's my next chapter? How do I relate to other people? So if you like that kind of personal story, I think this is very much a book for you. I know a lot of people kind of have trouble getting into your more standard quest fantasy because they want all the character stuff, and this has got bukus of character stuff, 1,000+ pages of character stuff, and there's tons of world building too in this. It's the overarching series is called the Nine Worlds series because there are 9 separate planets, and there's no sci-fi element to this. There's no space travel. They travel between the planets using like portals and thin spaces in reality, that kind of thing. And so originally the 5 of the planets were all part of the same empire until the fall, when magic stopped working properly. And so the 9 planets still exist, and there's still some traffic between them, but it's not as interconnected as it once was. And the emperor, who used to be in charge of 5 worlds, is now really only in charge of 1. So this is mostly set on the one planet that the emperor's in charge of, but then you do have some interrelatedness with the other planets and travel between, and characters go from one to the other. And each of these planets, as well as different places in said planets, have their own unique cultures, and that is another big factor in this particular Hands of the Emperor book. Is Cleofer, the main character. He comes from a culture that is very similar to like Polynesian type, like Hawaiian, Philippines, that Polynesian island type culture, because the author didn't copy one to one. She took bits and pieces and kind of made a fantasy mashup of different Polynesian cultures and traditions. And so then he travels to and works in the capital, which is very much not an islander kind of culture. So I said she did a really good job with the world building, where you have a very complex universe and world in which these characters live, and the different characters from different places very clearly read as people from different cultures. And then she examines like the different kinds of issues people have when you encounter new and different cultures, and discrimination, and how do you navigate when you have to assimilate to some degree, but you want to maintain your own ties to your own culture. So I mean, there's a very meaty book with a lot going on, and like I said, I very much enjoyed the whole thing. It's extremely well written, and I really enjoyed the fact also that they're grown-ups instead of kids coming into their own, which there's nothing wrong with that kind of story, but at this point in my life, I much prefer reading about grown-ups. So yes, I would 100% recommend this book to anyone who likes a fantasy book and they like something with a lot of like meaty character development, and that's the draw for a book. And so check that out on Hoopla. And if you really like it and you want to continue on the series, there's lots of debate about the right reading order, because it's one of those interrelated series where one part of the series follows one character and another part of the series follows another character, but they're enmeshed with each other. I actually recommend that after you read Hands of the Emperor, move on to The Return of Fitzroy Angersell as the second book to read, even though technically At the Feet of the Sun is the next book after Hands of the Emperor, just FYI. But they're all, like I said, they're all on Hoopla, so check them out from Hoopla. So for food, I've been doing a lot of sushi bakes. I think I originally saw it on TikTok, but it's basically you just make a casserole with your sushi ingredients. You put rice down the bottoms, and then whatever you like in sushi: salmon, imitation crab, shrimp, some spicy mayo, some furikake, just different, whatever you like in sushi. And then you put that in the oven just long enough to get it like nice and warm and melty all the way through, if you put some cream cheese in it. And then you get those roasted nori sheets and scoop some of those in the roasted nori sheets and fold it up and eat it. It's delicious. It's easy to make. It's also good to make like a big batch of if you were having a bunch of people over. So if you like sushi and you haven't done a sushi bake before, Google it to get some ideas and make one yourself, because like I said, it's really easy and it's really tasty. Anyway, leave me a comment down below and let me know what you have been reading and eating lately, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.